Okay.
All right, looks like we're live now.
Great. Thank you, Sam. All right, Crystal, now I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning. My name is Crystal Dunning, and on behalf of the Nebraska Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you to this panel meeting. We have convened to review applications in the Arts Project Grant category. Decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all applications. They will be reviewed by the NAC Council at the next meeting to convene on December 12th, 2023. I'd like for each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and I'm going to call on you each one at a time. And Ben, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Ben Alvers. I'm the Exhibitions Program Director at the Lawrence Art Center in Lawrence, Kansas.
Thank you. Rose?
Hi, I am Rose Christensen, and I am the grant specialist at the Omaha Community Foundation.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn?
Hi, good morning. I'm Dawn Martinez Orpeza, the Executive Director of Alexito, a statewide agency here in Iowa. So glad to be here.
Thanks, Dawn. And Shannon?
Good morning. I'm Shannon Walenta, and I am the Managing Director for Opera Omaha.
Thanks, Shannon. Mike Markey is the Executive Director of the Arts Council. Mike, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Crystal, very much. And thank you to all the panelists who have come together to look at these applications. And congratulations to all of you applicants for putting together your plans, your projects, and your applications that you've submitted to us. The panel today is going to provide a lot of wonderful feedback for you. And as a former applicant, I can attest to how valuable it is to listen into what all they have to say. And of course, Rachel is always around to answer any questions you may have about how the process works later on. I do want to encourage you as you continue on with your projects to consider inviting your elected officials to your events so that they know what good public funding for the arts is doing across the state. And then on the backside, I encourage you strongly to send a thank you note to them so that, again, they know the value of the work and that they can engage in the work that you're doing. All of that is very helpful for us as an agency and therefore for you as a arts programmer. With that, I'll hand you back to Crystal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rachel Morgan is the program specialist for this grant category. Rachel, would you like to explain the panel process for those listening in?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to kind of give a warning if I get an internet connection is unstable, I will be turning my camera off just to help make that run as smoothly as possible. Know that I am still here, but you might hear a voice from a dark screen at some point if that happens. I want to say welcome to the applicants. If you're listening in today, I think this is an incredible opportunity to hear this conversation. I remember driving in when I lived in Greater Nebraska to be able to hear my applications reviewed because I thought it was so helpful. So welcome. Just to let you know, we will be taking the applications in alphabetical order today. If you on the live stream, there should be Sam, our communications manager, is putting in which application we're on, and then we'll also announce it verbally as well as we switch applications. You will also be receiving a copy of your minutes, which will be uploaded into our grant system. So you will also have a written copy of minutes in case you're not able to participate in the live stream today, or if you want to refer back to it, we'll provide those as well for your application. As Crystal mentioned, the recommendations from this panel will go to the board in December. And after that, you will be hearing from our grants manager about decisions. if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Arts Council, and we will help you with that.
All right. Thanks, Rachel. All right, and with all that said, let's get started. So Rachel Morgan will provide a synopsis of each application, and I will then call upon the panelists one by one for their comments in this order: primary reviewer, secondary reviewer, and then the remaining reviewers one at a time. We'll now proceed with the first application. The first is Amplify Arts, and Dawn, we're starting with you. I'm sorry, I apologize. Amplify Arts and Rachel, we're starting with you, and then Dawn.
Thanks, Crystal. So the project is Alternate Currents, which is an alternative to a Masters of Fine Arts program, which does not exist in the Omaha and Council Bluffs area. Cohorts of 10 members per year build an intellectual and cultural commons by sharing resources, publishing work, and organizing public-facing exhibitions and discussions. Alternate Currents supports Omaha area artists and organizers working in any discipline to thoughtfully challenge dominant systems, forge collaborations, and engage with their communities. The awarded funds will be used to compensate artists participating in the program, as well as programs facilitator, discussion panelists, blog contributors, and to offset costs associated with marketing the public discussion series.
Thanks, Rachel. And Dawn.
Yeah, this was a great way to kick off the grants. It was a very interesting and innovative project that I really enjoyed reading about. So I love that it's a 2-year cohort, and the length of the project is really great. They've had really great letters of support. The publication that they come up with is well done and high quality. I also, I do love the fact that they are talking about systems change and making change within the community as well. And I think that's a great way to use the arts. Looking for positive ones that I have. Besides that, I like that they're using multimedia. So they have blogs and they have the publication, and there's a lot of ways to get the word out about the artist, about the project itself, which is really great. And I did like, there was an interesting use of advocacy and evaluation that they're using, and I appreciated that as well. Now, on the other side, some things that I think would have been helpful is one thing that one of the goals is using this as an alternative to an MFA program, and it was throughout the narrative. However, I do think that a lot of the people who have participated, a lot of the artists do have master's degrees already. So it kind of always came into question, like this was an alternative, but is it really? And I think what they're doing as far as systems change is enough. And also with MFA, the cohort is important, but the networking with other artists and the professional development is something that I appreciate in the MFA program. So is that incorporated a little bit more? And getting more information on all those resources that are being provided would have been helpful. The other part of some of the other questions that I had were, I'm getting to them right now. One is that they are translating the application into other languages, which is commendable. I applaud that. But if you don't have ongoing support throughout the program with translation, with language, then maybe don't translate it. If they can't participate fully in English, then I wonder about that. Though I love that this is for all ages, all levels, for people in the area. And let me see real quick. the goals are really great. However, there wasn't any goals really about systems change, about that aspect of this project, which I think is so important to the project. And so I would have liked to have seen additional goals about that. And also they're using very traditional methods of marketing, which, you know, how are they going to build capacity into marginalized communities? They didn't really discuss that since this is a big part of the project. I would have liked to see that in marketing. And also this is a really great opportunity, since this is a more innovative, cutting edge kind of program, to rethink and revision how they are marketing, who they're marketing to. So I would have liked to see a little bit more of that, especially when it comes to the systems change work. I think that's it. I think it was, I did enjoy reading this application. So, and I love the length of it. That's all I have.
Thanks, Dawn. Shannon.
Thank you, Dawn. That's fantastic review. I agree with everything you're saying. Under artistic merit, I also love their focus on kind of stemming the creative drain from the community and the state by making this program available, because that is such a critical issue for Nebraska. I think they have a very clear selection process in place for their cohort members, and their work samples were very high quality. In their planning process, their timeline was largely related to programmatic activity, and I feel like could include a lot more, or a fair bit more, of the administrative side of what they're doing. For instance, are they reviewing their application materials every year? Are they reviewing the avenues for distribution? And as you said, you know, building their capacity for connecting with marginalized communities and artists in those communities that might be interested in applying. I love the partnership with retail outlets nationwide to distribute the cohort publication. I mean, I love the cohort publication just in general, as you said, and I want to buy all of them. But the fact that they're partnering with the, you know, coast to coast and locally with these retail outlets to really make sure this publication is widely available is great. In underserved outreach, they really have been very intentional with their application materials, not only in the translation, but also gender inclusive language, making sure that people have a computer, they loan computers, make them available if someone doesn't have the technology, and provide staff support throughout the application process. And their letters of support were very strong. So those are my additions.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, so please take a moment to adjust your scores if needed. And then once it's completed, if you'll raise your hand, and we will move on to the next application.
Crystal, if you would call on.
Oh, sorry.
That would be great.
I apologize. Yes, I apologize all. Rose.
Yeah. I agree with everything that's been said so far. The only other things I would mention is I felt like they had a strong budget. It looks like they have some other sources of funding, which is nice to see. And I thought it was thoughtful that they didn't ask for the full amount that they could ask for. They asked for the amount that they needed. So I thought that was good to note. And then I also, I can't remember who called this out, but I did think the goals could be a little bit more specific and measurable. They had some good evaluation in there, but I wanted to see like what specifically they hope to achieve with it. So that was my thoughts there.
Thanks, Rose. And Ben.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's already been said. I think in some of my notes about the artistic quality, maybe a bit more articulation with, what an alternative to a master's program is, and it on the surface sort of reads like a collective in a way, an artist collective, and sort of articulating that a bit more. I would have liked to have seen some of that. And then the evaluation section, I think it was a little bit vague on how they would measure some of those outcomes. And I also wonder if there's a bit more room for growth with outreach to even younger audiences. This is primarily geared towards college age. Seems like college age folks. I wonder if there's that aspect that might continue this legacy or this project in the long range or long term.
Thank you. All right, now please take a moment to adjust your scores if necessary. And then once you've completed that, just raise your hand and we'll move on to the next application. Perfect, thank you all. All right, our next application is BFF Omaha Incorporated. Rachel?
So this grant application will help pay artists involved in the Sanitation Artist in Residence program, which is often seen in larger cities. It will help oversee all community engagement efforts and utilize the arts as an educational tool for environmental sustainability and beautification. Awarded funds will assist in compensating the lead sanitation artists and all other artists involved in the project. Additional project funding will be sourced from corporate sponsorships, donations, and memberships.
Thanks, Rachel. And Rose, we'll start with you.
Yeah, overall, I thought this was a strong application. I really liked the environmental piece with this and the education around that. I thought that was really strong. I liked that they had a strong timeline. I thought they identified who was doing what, and that looked great. Let me see my notes here. I liked that they identified an underserved audience, and that they had some strong partnerships in the community. I thought those were all good strengths. I think my questions or concerns were, it didn't seem like the artists were quite as established. I did note that they do have a strong tie to the community, which I liked, but they didn't seem to have a strong background. Also, I thought that the goals were strong, but that I would have liked to see them to be a little bit more specific. For example, they say success will be measured by the number of artists paid or impacted, but they don't have a goal for like how many they want to reach. So I think just having that extra step with those goals would have been nice to see. And then they did identify an underserved audience and had the strong partnerships, but I thought it was a little unclear what those partnerships would be doing for this particular project. It kind of sounded a little bit broadly to BFF rather than the Artist in Residence project. So that's what I was thinking.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn.
Yep. So also another interesting project that was interesting to read and brought up a lot of good ideas and things. I wish that they would have identified the artist because her name was unusual or their name was unusual, and they never referenced them as the artist. So I had to go figure out what that name was. There is a great possibility in this project, though I think it led me to more questions. One is they're going to be distributing literature and posters and things, which I feel like isn't a very environmentally conscious way of working. I feel like a lot of that will end up in the landfill that and the collection day that they do. I also feel like the artist is not being paid very much for the amount of work that this person's being brought on. It's almost like supplanting a paid position, which I could be problematic. But they're asking a lot of hours and not a lot of money. I do really appreciate and enjoy the artist's personal work, though it's definitely not family friendly. So the tie to working with community wasn't necessarily there for me in the narrative. I would have liked more information of how that artist has experience gathering people, working with marginalized communities, doing installations and community artwork. And I would have liked a lot more information about the community art making process, like how are they going to keep it green and safe and everything else? Is it a long-term project, a short-term project? They could have used more of the narrative on that as opposed to the bikes and everything else that she's doing and collecting trash and things like that. I do also wonder, the timeline was very, very brief. And the letter of support is from the artist. And a lot of the same verbiage from the letter of support was in the grant. So I'm wondering if this is an artist-led initiative and not a organizational initiative, which of course isn't a problem, but it does bring up questions. And none of the evaluations is on the arts and the art making process. And so I would have liked to see, what is your artistic goal? That's what I have.
Thanks, Dawn. Shannon?
I think that you have both covered pretty much all of my notes. One additional thing is I just would have liked to see a little more detail in the budget. It just left some questions dangling for me in terms of how things were getting paid and who's getting paid and all of that.
And Ben?
Yeah, I think the echoing a little bit of what's already been said with some of those numbers in the timeline seemed, excuse me, a little tight. I think the strong points from my perspective was, I think a project like this has loads of potential with engaging the community in lots of ways. So from the audience or consumer perspective, I think there's a lot of promise there. I think having a bit more, for the grant purpose of what we're doing today, having a bit more information about the specific projects and the artists and what they would actually be up to, I think would be helpful. But I think someone said earlier, the partners seem logical and smart. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ben. All right, if you will please adjust your scores if needed, and then raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to the next application. All right, perfect, thank you. Okay, the next application is Blix Locally Grown. Rachel.
So this application is to help pay the artists involved in bringing Foster from page to stage through a rehearsal workshop and staged reading at Blix Arts Lab in spring of 2024. Foster explores the crucial issues surrounding early childhood education deserts in our state. Any funds awarded will pay the artists involved, including the producer, director, and actors.
Thanks, Rachel. And Rose, we're starting with you.
Yeah, I thought this was an outstanding proposal. I really liked that it stemmed from a need from the community that they saw. I thought that the artists were well established and qualified. They have a history of funded performances, including previous funding from the Nebraska Arts Council. So I thought that was good to note. I thought that the goals were really strong and measurable. I liked that they included the Spanish speaking, the translation and the participation of Spanish speakers, and I liked that that was a part of their goals and how that they were measuring that it wasn't just something that they were doing, but that they're actually thoughtfully measuring what that looks like, and that they also have plans to reach rural communities, though that sounded like it might be beyond this grant project, but I liked that they were kind of incorporating that with it. I also thought that they had strong collaboration and partnerships, and that I liked that they clearly demonstrated the role of their partnerships with the grants. I thought they clearly identified an underserved population with the early childhood education piece. I did think it focused really strongly on that and the awareness around it. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the production and sort of the artistry of it. It seemed very focused on the early childhood education piece with this grant. I was also a little bit concerned with their budget. They had a pending grant, so I was just curious what would happen if that grant didn't come through. But otherwise, overall I thought it was a great application.
Thanks, Rose. Shannon.
I agree that this is a very strong proposal. I think the company is doing a really great job connecting art, activism, and responding to community need. And they have a strong track record of doing this type of work. Anytime that you are creating new work for the theater, bringing new work to life, there are a lot of unknowns, things that you don't know it until you're in it. But I felt like their work samples really painted a very strong picture of their ability to take on this sort of project. And I particularly loved the documentary about the making of a previous project that also had a social justice focus or social issue focus. In terms of their project description, there was a lot of good information in there about what the project is, when and where the project is. I really had to dig to figure out how many public performances of the workshop they were doing and when those were taking place. So that would have been helpful to have a little more information there up front. I think the artists who are leading the project, again, the people involved in the production and the administrator all have very strong credits for past projects and have received numerous awards. And the goals section, while they have clear goals, it all felt a little bit unquantifiable to me. And I would love to see some additional, some metrics, data-driven points in there that they can collect and see, over time. And what are the tools that they're going to use for things like measuring depth of engagement? Is that, through observation? Is that through verbal or written response? And then I also, I felt like there could have been a little bit more information, since there is so much of a focus on childcare providers and Spanish-speaking caregivers. How are they really engaging with those communities and getting them involved in the project and getting them to the performances? I have a lot of questions about if this is an area where workers tend to be undercompensated and living below the poverty level, and you are asking them to take time away from their work to attend or participate in this workshop, there's potentially a little bit of a disconnect there for me in terms of the marginalized or underserved population. I would love to see more detail in the timeline and who is responsible for what parts of this project. I thought their budget was detailed and accurate, and they provided a lot of community demographics, which was helpful in painting a picture of the social issue that they are working to elevate through this project. And great partnerships in place with a number of organizations in the community. So very strong there. And really positive letters of support.
Thanks, Shannon. Ben.
Yeah, I think this is a great project. I thought the project description, the building of a play is, from my limited knowledge, takes place on multiple levels with lots of different folks working together over a long period of time. I thought the vagueness with that, I didn't question it that much, because it seems like they have long-term vision or goals or aspirations with this thing, and I think they articulated it's well written, and I think the goals are pretty well laid out. I love the idea that it's an original production, and yeah, the stakeholders that they've incorporated into this part of the process, or this stage of the process, I think is great. A pretty clear track record of grants and funding from both some of the participants and in the organization. I think that's all really a positive sign. And I back to the origins of it, identifying a need or a gap within their community. I think that's the best place to start with coming up with a project. So I was happy to have read it.
Thanks, Ben. And Dawn.
Yeah, this is a great application, as everybody has said. I would say I've probably read the NEA grants for the last 6 years, and I'm sorry I haven't seen this one come across my desk, but to get 6 years in a row consecutively is a huge feat. So competing with really great projects. So congratulations on that. The Nebraska Arts Council might want to keep this one on file to share with other people on how to do it. I've never, I get art is social change. I even got my master's in it in San Francisco, but it really came together for me after all these years in arts administration with this application of this is what should be done, like how organically it came out of a professional development and a community need, and how it was phased into what it is now is a really beautiful transition, and really helped me understand the power of arts as social change. And so I really appreciated that. I would like to see that they are intentionally inviting legislators and decision makers to the performances. When they talked about outreach, they didn't really go into that as much, and I think that that's where their power is. And I think here in Iowa, childcare is hugely on the Capitol floor right now, and so I think that they really need to be intentional about that and use this as an opportunity to get some of those legislators to speak about the issues. So yeah, I think, and I also love how they talk about providing or giving tools in the tool belt, to solve problems in our community, and using the arts that way was, I love that phrase. So I really appreciated it. Yep.
Thanks, Dawn. All right, if you will take a moment to adjust your scores if needed, and raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to the next application. Thank you. Okay, our next application is Fall City Main Street. Rachel?
So this grant application is to help pay for materials and a pair of artists to paint a mural, which is approximately 100 feet long and 30 feet tall on a brick building, which is along Highway 73 in the Creative District in Falls City. They plan on using any funds to pay for the artist's labor, travel expenses, and materials. As part of the project, they need to replace some window coverings and fix some brickwork before the painting can begin.
Thank you, Rachel. Dawn, I'm starting with you.
Yep. Real simple application. They are bringing in some very high quality artists, very experienced artists. Their video was really well done. I really appreciated as for the artist, seeing the process. I would have liked to have seen a CV or some kind of resume of the artist, though, would have been helpful to the application. And it also would have probably have helped. I'm going back on something I said earlier. It would have helped to get some of the verbiage about the arts making from the artist and incorporate it into the application. So it would have helped kind of explain things a little bit better, I think. So the application states that the mural is going to draw on the community, but from the letters of support, it's clear that there are several great artist works and projects in the community. And I would have liked to have heard more, how will this specific project enhance the community art collection? You know, how will it be different or draw other people in? That I would have liked to have seen. As far as planning goes, I do believe that there was, I would have liked some more details on the artist timeline, like how long are they coming, how often are they painting, how many hours are they painting. There's a big budget piece for their food. Just like I was trying to match everything up, and it was really hard to do because I didn't get the details. They also talk about, you know, that they're using this project, this mural, as a way to bring in community. But there was there was like coming in of the history and the arts together. I would have liked to see some of those goals specific to this project. Like, how are you bringing in the history and the arts? Like, how is the community part of this? It would have helped strengthen the application for sure. You know, they gave a pretty basic synopsis of the demographics of the community. But I wanted to see, you know, who is the underserved in the community? Is it the youth and the elders that you're bringing in? I wanted to see some more details about that. They are having students visit the artist, which I think is great and really impactful. I'm trying to think of what else the writing of this grant wasn't really selling the product as an arts project, and it could have been helped a little bit more by an artist, to really help explain it a little bit more. They also needed to do a little bit of proofreading would have helped, and let me just see real quick. Yeah, this project. They're bringing the artists come in, the kids come in, the community comes in and gets to doodle on the wall, which I thought was beautiful. And I really liked to see the doodles, and then everybody paints over it. So I wanted to see how the community was really like, can they keep a piece of that, or can it be incorporated into the design? Or how are they working with the community to keep pieces of it, or to get the design together? That would have been better. So yeah, I think that is all that I have.
Thank you, Dawn. Ben.
Thanks. I sort of feel like this is kind of a very standard issue, kind of a project. I agree with some of what's already been said with a bit more connection from the artist or articulation from the artists involved. You know, the what did they say? And their project goals. You know, one of the goals is to appeal and resonate with everyone in the community. That's great, but I think in the description of that goal, I think they could have expanded upon that further. Like, what is that, and how does that, you know, how do you set that up? And I think in terms of the planning and evaluation, you know, where is that more? They did state some of the public interaction, but I think that could have been flushed out a little bit more in more detail with the interaction leading up to the content of whatever ends up on the wall, right? So I would have liked to have seen more specific examples or ideas on how that would take place. And then project evaluation, I think definitely needs more structure. I think comments on, I think there's a section in there, comments on social media makes me squirm a little bit in terms of something that is quantifiable. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Rose?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it would be a great addition to the community, but I would have liked to have just had a lot more information. I think especially around the impact and the goals and evaluation around that. So I think that's the only other additions I have.
Thank you. And Shannon?
I echo that same sentiment about really feeling like overall there was limited information in this application. What I do love about this project and think was very unique was the artist approach of embedding themselves in the community physically with their tiny house parked in the parking lot by the building, and having the opportunity to authentically build relationships with community members that way as they're going through this project. Also, the doodling piece, which I also thought was fantastic, really provides an opportunity up front for community members to take personal ownership and feel like they literally have a piece of this mural that they had their paintbrushes on the wall. So I think those aspects are going to go a long way toward their goal of creating a connection to place, while they're also creating a marker about their own community history. As far as underserved outreach, it's wonderful that they're connecting with their local nursing facilities to expose senior residents to the piece of art when it's in process and finished. Overall, though, I feel like it's a very passive impact that they're going for with people driving by, and that there could be some more thought put into that aspect of the project, and how else besides the students from the schools and the senior citizens in the nursing facilities, how else could they be connecting with some marginalized populations and using this new beautiful centerpiece of their community to enrich and enhance other people's lives as well. I think that's it.
Thank you, Shannon. All right. If you will take a moment to adjust your scores if needed, and raise your hand when you're done, and we will move on to the next application.
That was all for Crystal.
Okay, thank you. And our next application is Jocelyn Castle Trust. Rachel?
And I just wanted to throw out to the panelists, I thought we would do one more and then take a break if everyone's doing okay. Okay, great. So this grant application will help pay for the creation and implementation of an artist in residence program at the Jocelyn Castle and Gardens and within the Castle and Cathedral Creative District, which includes the Cathedral Arts Project, Cali Commons, and the Jocelyn Castle. There's a lot of Jocelyn Castles in your neighborhood association, and Jocelyn Castle and Gardens. Any funds awarded will help pay the artist that is involved in the project.
Thank you, Rachel. And Ben, we're starting with you.
Thank you. I think, well, I'm just going to read my notes. The artists seem pretty well established within the city. And I think in the writing, they kind of lean into that as being a really strong asset. And I'd like to see more articulation with, having outside or underrepresented voices involved in the process. And I do think they touch on it, but I have questions about, pulling straight from someone who's worked with, it seems like, just about every organization in town. But having said that, it seems very well laid out. Most of the funds going straight to the artist and the production of all of the work that would be going on with this project. I think they had good questions in the evaluation section, although there could be more information about who exactly is evaluating that. Are the project leaders asking themselves these questions, or how are they getting it out to the community in terms of how they're evaluating? And then the outreach part, it seems solid and logical in a way, and I think that's positive. And again, the artist involved seems really involved already with so much of the agencies or stakeholders that are a part of this thing. And that's it from me.
Thanks, Ben. Rose?
Yeah, I agree with Ben there. I think the artist is very well established in the community. It was a little unclear to me what the artist would be doing. I know that's probably, they'll figure that out as they go. But I would have liked a little bit more context for what their kind of vision or goal was for that, and sort of the impact they were hoping to get out of it, or how it would kind of impact the community there. I thought that they had a pretty strong plan for it, although this might have been user error on my part. It looked to me like the timeline only included dates up till now, like it didn't have dates until further into the project. So it wasn't clear to me what their timeline was going forward in the project. So it's a little unclear on that. But otherwise, I think they had a clear plan in their narrative. They talked about that. They did talk about serving an underserved audience, but to me, it seemed like that was more speaking to them as a whole, not necessarily how this specific project would be serving an underserved audience. So I wanted a little bit more clarity on that. And then I thought for their planning and evaluation, I really liked the questions that they were asking. I thought they were had some really good questions, but like Ben said, I was wondering how they would measure that, how those questions would be answered, and a little bit more context for that. I think that's all the notes that I had.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn?
Yeah, I just like to tell the applicant that, they really, because there's so many Jocelyn, this is like as an outsider, I didn't have any reference. And so explaining and being really clear on I tried to get the big picture of what is this and what do they do and where's the arts in this and so it was very kind of complicated at first. I also feel like in some ways they're supplanting a position with this residency, but I wanted more detail on how many hours the artist would be working, but they're asking for a lot. Like, do they have, like, talk then about their social media experience and do they have programming experience in arts? I think that's really important because they're doing probably about 3 people's jobs. So give us more details on the artist's experience with that, and give us the methods of your evaluation and not the content of your evaluation. And so, yeah, I think that's basically it for me.
Thanks, Don. And Shannon.
I think it is great that this project came as a response to what their Jocelyn neighborhood community is asking for. And Waddy White is certainly a highly qualified artist with lots of credits and a good choice for this residency, but I do question the fact that the artist helped create the residency and then became the resident artist. So I'm just wondering, did they consider other artists? Did they do a request for proposals? It feels like there was maybe a step missing in that process that could have opened the avenue to some other alternatives. I agreed that the timeline, Rose, you were correct. The timeline ended before the period of this project. It also could have benefited from some careful proofreading. So that's always something to keep in mind. Under audience development, they really did a great job of providing clear demographics about the neighborhood itself, not just city demographics, but that specific area of the community. And I thought that was really helpful to the project. And then in terms of outreach and access, and I think one of you mentioned this, there was kind of this blurring of the lines to me between what was specific to the project and what was bigger neighborhood activity and goals. And so a little clarification on that would have been helpful. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Shannon. All right, if everyone will take a moment to adjust their scores if needed, and then just raise your hand when you're done. All right, thank you very much. Rachel, do you want to say 10:05?
I think that's perfect.
All right, we will take a break now. You can go off camera, mute yourself, and we will see you at 10:05. All right, welcome back. Rose and Ben, whenever you're back, if you can turn your camera on.
And do we have Stephanie? Ah, there she is. She read my mind.
All right, welcome back, everyone. And we are going to go ahead and get started again with Little Red Hen Theater. Rachel?
This grant application will help fund the Little Red Hen Theater season in 2024, which is entitled Be Our Guest, which is, they anticipate reaching an estimated 1,500 participants from Northeast Nebraska. Activities included in this specific grant application include a production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, their annual drama camp for students in grades K through 8, and an immersive improvised murder mystery event, Murder in Margaritaville, and also will include hiring artists for their Wakefield market. The funds in the grant award will be used to offset production costs for all activities, as well as hire a director for The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and the musicians for the Wakefield market, and also hire the lead teacher for the drama camp.
Thanks, Rachel. Shannon, we're starting with you.
Great. I thought this was a very well put together application that shows that this is an organization that is filling a lot of different types of arts needs in the community, and providing a wide range of not only participatory arts experiences, but also exposure to different types of arts events. Their main production of the season, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is a Tony Award-winning script, is a very ambitious choice. They are going to be challenging their volunteer cast members through this repertoire to really stretch themselves artistically, to learn to work together as an ensemble, and also to play multiple roles. The play deals with subject matter surrounding autism, and it's stated that the director will bring personal experience with youth with special needs to her directing process. I would love to know more about that and how that specific relates to the topic of autism that is in this selection. It was also stated that this script will speak to our audiences. I think it would be great if they could include some data around that. You know, what is the percentage of families in the community or in the surrounding area that have special needs children or family members with autism? What exactly is it? What is the connection point between that subject matter and their community specifically? That would be really great to know. Another data point I would love to see is about the growth of their drama camp. They're providing a wonderful space, a safe space through that program where students can explore their creativity and learn to express themselves and gain some theatrical skills. But as a program that's done year over year, I would love to see some metrics on how that program is growing. They have highly qualified artists. All of their lead artists have multiple degrees in music and in theater and extensive credits, both community project organizations and professional organizations, not just in Nebraska, other states as well. And they have adopted this kind of workshop-based audition process for their volunteer actors, which is a unique aspect, I think, of this project that is really gives them an opportunity to start the relationship building process within the audition process, so that for those who are cast, there's already a foundation laid there before they even walk in the door to their first rehearsal. They did a great job of laying out the goals that were specific to each item in the project. Some of these were going to be really hard to measure, particularly whether audiences find the events highly satisfactory. What does that mean exactly? How are you going to get to the heart of that, and try to identify that level of satisfaction? I would also have loved to see examples of what they're going to be asking in their surveys and how those survey questions relate back to the goals that they have outlined. The budget is detailed and seems realistic for the project. One thing that was not clear to me from the narrative until reading the budget, it looks like they will, in this piece of their season, they're only going to be hiring one musical act for the Wakefield markets. I think it said hiring artists for the Wakefield markets, but it looks like there's actually only one Wakefield market that falls within this grant cycle, and they will only be hiring one artist for that. There were a few issues with typos in some of the supporting materials, so always be mindful of that. And also, I would just warn against using acronyms like DTFY, which is, I looked it up. I had to look it up, and I have theater experience. But so things like that, it was basically related to theater training for youth, because the people who are reading the application aren't necessarily going to be theater people. So just be aware of spelling things out clearly for the people who will be reviewing. Timeline was extremely detailed. Gold star for a color-coded Excel spreadsheet. That just made my heart so happy as a structural person. Audience demographics, they really did a great job of painting the demographics of the community and how it was similar or different from the many other communities in that rural area that they are serving. So, they kind of have to look at two ways in terms of how they're engaging with audiences, because some of them are local and that group looks different from the people who may be driving in from a little further distance. Because their local community has a high percentage of Hispanic non-English speakers, they are making efforts to connect with those people through bilingual promotional materials. And something I particularly loved in their outreach and accessibility narrative is they are mentoring a Wayne State College theater student as the writer of the script for their murder mystery concept. So this is a backed by popular demand, super fun, entertaining thing, but they've also brought an educational piece into it by collaborating with the university in that way. As far as underserved audiences. So again, back to the fact that the main play of the season deals with topic of autism. There was just a brief mention of reaching out to specialists through the educational service unit to provide guidance to the cast and also participate in talkbacks. I feel like since that play is really a cornerstone of their season, I would have loved to have seen a lot more information about what that partnership looks like. What resources are they bringing not only to the cast, but to the community through that partnership. And they're keeping ticket prices very low to make sure attendance is accessible to a wide range of people. And their drama camp is always free. So kudos for accessibility there. And then they had very strong letters of support from 2 of their community partners.
Thanks, Shannon. Ben.
Yes, I'm one of those non-theater people who had to look a few things up terminology wise, but let's see. Sorry. I thought it's a good range of content and performances, wide range of age and participants. And I liked the learning opportunities they had kind of set up or stated for folks that might not have access. And then all the, the resumes of the participants or the artists listed seem accomplished and pretty solid. The good systems to evaluate on multiple levels. I questions, or maybe it's my own brain, wondering how they get the word out for our auditioning, that stage of the process, and how they're marketing that, and to whom, and how are those partnerships playing a role in that specifically in getting, the participants, the performers involved. And I think if their projected attendance numbers are realistic, I think that seems really solid, a solid number. But I do wonder about the mechanisms for getting the audition or the call for auditions out there. Thanks.
Ben, Dawn.
Yeah, I think everything was covered. I think one thing, they do have really clear goals and measures and things. I think that as an organization, they could go a little bit deeper and challenge themselves a little bit more by putting some artistic goals that are a little beyond what they are doing. I think incorporating this population is good. Add some goals to it. There was some numbers and changes of different numbers throughout the application. Like first they say 1,000 goals and they say 1,500, and the murder mystery tickets were 9 to 11, then it was 20 to 25. So make sure that those things are equal. They also might want to, I feel like their market has the potential, they should be charging people to sell. That has potential for for them to make money on it and support what they're doing, but the artists will also be supported. It doesn't have to be really expensive, but I do think that they could have a sliding scale for nonprofits or individual artists or organizations and sponsor the event itself. I do think with almost half of their audience being Latino, it's short-sighted not to be thinking really strategically about selection choices and integrated programs. They will be your future, in 20 years, it'll be a larger percentage. So how's your audience going to be supported in 20 years, 30 years, when the Latino population is much younger and growing? So I think all arts organizations need to think about that. And you can't just advertise in Spanish. It has to be translated performances or subtitled or something. And also you may want to look at there's an organization in Iowa called Eulenspiegel Puppets that has really driven a small community's welcomingness and integration of the arts for Spanish speaking communities that they might want to look at. So yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Dawn. Rose?
Yeah, I feel like everyone has said all of the notes that I took. I'm trying to think if there's anything I can add. I did think it was overall, I thought that they provided a lot of information. So I didn't have like a ton of questions, which I thought was great. As I was reading through this, as Dawn mentioned, I liked the timeline and how that was laid out. I do agree with Dawn about the bilingual and the accessibility. I think they could take that a step further. I think they're have a good plan to include that, but I'd like to see that go a little bit further. And then with the evaluation, I did want to see more about how they would measure it and kind of some examples of those questionnaires and what that would look like.
Thank you. All right, if you'll take a moment to adjust your scores if needed, and then raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to the next application. All right, thank you. Nebraska Communities Playhouse, Rachel?
This grant application will help cover production costs for the first two shows of their 2024 season. The two shows are the Hunchback of Notre Dame, to be performed in March, and then a children's show, Disney's Finding Nemo Jr., which will be performed in June of 2024. They expect to reach an estimated 2,000 people from around the region. Any grant funds will go to fund a recruitment of artistic team involved, including directors, music directors, choreographers, and designers. And then they may also purchase materials and construction for all designs.
Thank you. Shannon?
Okay, well, this is an ambitious organization. They're doing the two musicals outlined in this grant proposal and an additional 4 musicals later on in the calendar year. So they have a lot going on. I felt like they did a very good job of illustrating why this project is important to their community, which was building human connection, providing economic activity, and increasing the desirability and livability of the area. That being said, a large portion of their project description was dedicated to the synopsis for their first show, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This really is not something that strengthens their application. That is information that is readily available, and I would have been much more interested in things like the qualifications and selection process for their local talent that is going to be filling all manner of roles. They're going to be staffing and cast members and crew members, and really would have liked to know a lot more about how those people are chosen. I also would have loved to know more about the number of performances within each of these production periods, and just generally have a lot more information about the artists involved in the productions. They did provide good work samples, and actually the most helpful thing to me was the video excerpt from a past production that showed very high quality artists performing, and also great production values, that, you know, good scenery and costumes and wigs and projection effects and all sorts of things. So that actually painted a much clearer picture for me, and I would have loved to have gotten that from the narrative as well. As far as their artist bios, they basically provided program bios from a past production, and that it was unclear to me whether those same people were filling the same spots for the coming productions. I would recommend not using program bios, show program bios, because they kind of have a different format and don't really indicate a lot about qualifications like educational credits and past affiliations, and why those people are the best. You want to paint the picture of why those people are the best choice for your project. Under goals and evaluation, they did have a number of goals outlined, but they were primarily qualitative and hard to measure. I would suggest adding some quantitative goals, like how many tickets are you trying to sell for each production? How many surrounding communities are you trying to engage as audience members? Because they're doing zip code analysis. So if they can align the goal with the measurement that they're already taking and make a stronger connection there. Timeline information could have been more complete. They did have a lot of dates that were for past planning cycle and not as much for upcoming. Again, things that they could add here that would strengthen the application would be things like deadlines for selecting repertoire, rehearsal dates, specific performance dates. Also include the marketing and PR timeline, because those costs are in the budget, but there's no reference to them in the narrative materials or in the timeline. When are they putting tickets on sale? Do they have print and mailing deadlines for promotion? They did have a good budget, clear and adequately detailed. And then in audience development, they provided demographics for the immediate community. They could expand upon that and also provide demographics to the 15 or more surrounding communities that they are intending to connect with, which they listed in the artistic merit section. They did outline that there's been a demographic shift in their community to younger families, and did a good job making the case that they are filling a community need that is connected to this younger family, younger demographic growth in their community for educational and performance programming. They also provided descriptive narrative about how they're engaging and serving older residents in their community, which tied back to their mission statement. Outreach and accessibility, there really were no specific plans listed for educational community outreach in the coming year, though they did state that they are working on building partnerships with other downtown businesses. And I felt that they had excellent letters of support that really showed significant buy-in from the community to support their programming.
Thanks, Shannon. Rose?
Yeah, I agree with everything Shannon has said about this application. Overall, I thought it was pretty strong. I think I would have liked, and I think Shannon kind of mentioned this, they are requesting funds to support all of their productions. I would maybe recommend in the future maybe focusing on just one of them, or kind of having a more narrow scope, or make sure to talk about all of their productions in it if that's what the funding is for. It focused kind of just on that one production, so it was kind of hard to get a picture of everything. And then, like she mentioned with the timeline, it was really heavily focused on past performances, so I would have liked to see some more information on their plan going forward. And then I think they could have taken their goals and evaluation a little bit further. I would have liked to see what some of that looked like. It seemed a little bit vague for some of the things that they're trying to capture. I thought that some of the artists, I wanted to know more about the artists and how they were chosen for it. I liked that this was kind of bringing theater to a rural audience. I thought that was really strong and outlined in their application. I really liked that one of the letters of support was from a family that had been impacted by theater in their community. So I really thought that was thoughtful and strengthened their application. Otherwise, I think Shannon kind of captured all the other points that I had.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn?
Yeah, just some suggestions. I think if they invested in a communications person to really be able to articulate their impact in the community and their artistic excellence in a couple sentences, I think that would be really helpful. I do think it's pretty significant cost to bring in somebody from like the costs are pretty substantial for the community. If you're going to bring in professionals from around the country and things, like, is there, like, it's a missed opportunity in some ways that they're not using experts in Omaha or Lincoln that can develop relationships and partnerships with their organization. And if you are going to bring in people, possibly professional development opportunities would be good. The ticket prices were a little high, I think, for the demographics. And is there sliding scales, or is there a school age student price? And really, that's all I have that wasn't said.
Thanks, Dawn. Ben?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what Rose had to say. I think they spent a lot of time describing, the season, that seemed kind of straight out of the textbook kind of thing, and not so much on what their approach to making that a unique production of their own. And then, yeah, theater is expensive. Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I thought it was they could have used a little bit more of a writing angle, like Dawn was mentioning. I think just articulating it a little bit more, less about the productions and more about the artists and what they're bringing and how they're bringing it to these sort of long-standing plays and musicals.
Thanks, Ben. All right, if you will take a moment to adjust your scores if needed, and then we will raise your hand and we'll move on to our next application. Okay. Let's see. Omaha Academy of Ballet. Rachel?
This grant application will help fund the Omaha Academy of Ballet's production of the Omaha Dance Project, which will feature 4 original choreographed dance works. This annual community celebration of dance is a mixed repertory performance with a signature ballet and features 31 dancers. Performances will be held at the Performing Arts Center at Marion High School in January. They expect over 700 people of all ages from the greater Omaha metro area and beyond to attend. Any grant funds will be used to pay for professional and guest dancers, contracted services necessary to the production, costumes and sets, and marketing.
Thank you. Shannon, we're starting with you.
Great. I thought this was a very clear and well thought out and put together application. They are filling a unique need in the Omaha dance landscape by providing the professional level kind of company style dance performance opportunity for pre-professional dancers, which is critical to their growth and understanding of what it would be like if they choose to go on and pursue a career in the professional dance arena. All of their work, the featured ballet plus the 3 other pieces, are all newly commissioned work, which is great for not only the choreographers who get to apply their craft, but also these young dancers who get to learn new repertoire, which is a great opportunity for them as performers. Production coordination and administration is led by experienced members of the community. All of the choreographers have been chosen and their bios showed extensive credits professionally inside and outside of Omaha. I did not see bios for the 4 alumni dancers who are going to be featured. That would have been nice to see since they will be returning. It's stated that auditions are open and dancers are selected based on technical skill. Now I'm jumping around a little bit here, but they referenced promoting the performance to BIPOC dance and arts organizations in the community. I did not see reference to them promoting the auditions to BIPOC dance and arts organizations in the community, which I think would be a fantastic thing to strengthen their outreach and accessibility with this project. Back to goals and evaluation, they make reference to number of attendees, supported choreographers, and education of a wide range of dancers. Again, it's unclear how they are attracting dancers from a wide range of backgrounds and what exactly do they mean by that. They are attracting audience members from 51 area zip codes, however, so doing a good job of engaging a broad swath of the community in performance attendance. Their timeline is extensive and very detailed, includes administrative, artistic, production, and marketing deadlines and who is responsible for everything. And then their budget also very detailed and accurate and reflects the narrative as described. In audience development, they provided clear demographics of the city and the surrounding metro area and how many zip code areas they are drawing students for classes, performances, and engagement. Their primary underserved outreach is after-school programming in Title I schools. Their Dance Away or Afternoon, I think it was called. And that's an ongoing program that isn't specifically connected to this Omaha Dance Project performance, but they are offering tickets to these students in the after-school programming to attend this performance. Now, there's a disconnect for me here because if these are students who are in after-school programs in Title I schools, it is not you can't make the automatic assumption that if you give them a ticket to come to something that they will be able to attend. Do they have a responsible adult who can go with them and get them there? Do they have transportation to get there? Do they feel like it's being held in a location where they will be welcome and comfortable? Or is it something that's not for them? So these are a lot of things that I feel like this organization could be exploring in terms of their underserved outreach and their accessibility, even though they have this great program that they're doing with after school students. As far as their letters of support, they had one very strong letter of support, which was from a choreographer who has been a student in the school, who has danced professionally, who has choreographed for them, and has a lot of professional credits. The second letter of support was from a past participant, and although it was very heartfelt, I don't feel like it really strengthened the application. They would maybe be better served by a letter from another external partner, something along those lines. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Shannon. Rose?
Yeah, I agree with Shannon. I think it's a strong application. I think it's really well thought out. And I'm kind of starting at a different section, but I think I really liked the timeline and the planning that went into it. I think the budget is really strong. They asked for the amount that they need instead of requesting the full amount, which I think is thoughtful. So they're really thinking about how they'll use these funds. I fully agree with Shannon about sort of the accessibility and intentionally serving underserved audiences. I think they focused a lot when they were talking about serving underserved populations. It was really, to me, it sounded like it was the after school program they were highlighting there, and I didn't see it as much in the rest of their application and what they're asking funds for. So I would have liked more focus on that rather than the program that's not being funded by this request. So that would be my suggestion there. I thought that I also agreed with the letters of support. I felt like that the second one wasn't as strong as the first. And then I would have liked more information on their selection process or the auditioning process, and their sort of outreach for that, how they were going to engage people to audition, like who they were reaching out to for that. Otherwise, I think Shannon said everything else that I had in my notes.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn?
Yeah, I wish that they would have made me excited about who they were and the artistic quality, and the program was really well done. and that's where I got the most excited, was like looking at the profiles and like what they were doing. So the narrative wasn't like, this is why we're great and this is why we're high quality dance and this is why this project is exciting. And it was reflective in the outreach. It was reflective in the merit. All of it kind of was like, this is what we do, and that was really it. I wanted to hear about the pieces being choreographed and who those artists were, and excitement about the project. I also think that the ticket prices are a little high, and I wanted to know how many tickets were going to the families in the after school program. If you're paying one artist to come in, like, is there opportunities for residencies? Are you gonna work with after school kids? Will they get to work with this professional artist? Give us something a little bit more. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Dawn. Ben?
Yeah, I always like anything that's new or original that's being created or that we're helping to support in some kind of way. So I do like that they were doing that. Echoing a little bit of what's already been said with the the mechanisms or the approach to marketing for auditions and how they plan to do that. I think that could have been articulated a little bit further. But the overall plan or structure seems pretty well put together from my perspective, and that includes the budget. That seems pretty well laid out too. That's all.
Thanks, Ben. All right, if you'll take a moment to adjust your score if needed and raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to our next application. All right, thank you. Omaha Downtown Improvement District. Rachel?
This grant application will help engage Omaha artists in creating vibrant mini murals on utility boxes along the 16th Street corridor, which is a historic downtown Omaha neighborhood that has fallen into disuse. The grant funds will help pay for 2 installations, which will constitute the first phase of an 11 mural project, which is in collaboration with the City of Omaha and Omaha by Design. The project itself is modeled on the award-winning Art Plus infrastructure that was led with the Omaha Rapid Bus Transit. The grant funds will help pay for the artists involved in the project.
All right. Ben, we're starting with you.
Thank you. I think this is a good project. In some ways, it feels familiar, like this is something that's happening in cities all over the place. I don't think that's plus or minus. I think it just felt familiar. But I do think their focus on diversity with the artists that they want to engage with, I think, was definitely the right direction to go. I had questions about the lack of information on maintenance. Once you put these things up, who's taking care of them for the long haul, and a little bit more information would have been good on the community input and where that happens within the planning process. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Ben. Shannon.
I just love the intersection of public art, community history, and social advocacy in this project. And the fact that they're incorporating QR codes in the artwork so that people can scan those and learn not only about the history of the 16th Street corridor, but also the current social issues with our unhoused residents, and even have an opportunity to support organizations that are helping those populations. So I love everything about that. As far as the qualification of artists, the lead artists and the administrators have clearly succeeded with other projects of this nature. And I would have maybe liked to see a little more detail on the final selection process for the artists. What exactly are they being asked to submit in proposals, and who is making the final decision? I don't know, Ben, if I missed that, but I wasn't sure if the lead artist was making the decision on the artist, or if there's a committee. I couldn't tell. I think their goal is pretty clear, that they're going to install 2 of these pieces of art out of 11 that will be done in the future. It is harder to measure the impact of encountering art in our everyday lives. And I don't know how they intend to do that. They will use the QR codes though for tracking foot traffic and interaction with the pieces of art, and then also social media engagement. So there's some promotion and tracking there. And I thought they had excellent letters of support, though the second letter of support was from a board member of the organization that is applying. And again, back to my commentary about better to have somebody outside of the immediate project providing your letters of support. He did have great things to say, and is also a business owner downtown, but I just think it would strengthen the application if he weren't so closely connected to the project with that letter. I think that's it.
Thanks, Shannon. Dawn?
Yeah, I think exciting project. I think it's innovative to use QR codes to get engagement and capture the numbers there. I think that's great. But expecting unhoused residents to go and use, go get resources and stuff, they may want to rethink that, because usually you don't have money for phones and internet. Also want to, they have really strong partners with downtown and everything else, and it's a good project for everybody. But shouldn't they be matching this project with some funding? I feel like the downtown associations should be investing in their community project. They also have, they talked about drawing foot traffic, but then they say, or somebody said, there's people walk the skywalk to the parking lot. Are these murals, are all these pieces really going to draw people to the street when there's a clear skywalk to the parking lot? I think they need to maybe rethink how they phrase that for future projects. And they did reference of, there's a lot of other similar projects, and they mentioned that, but what are they gleaming? What are they bringing to it? Do they have data on reducing litter or crime? That would have been helped the project. And also it's one of those catch-22s. They're like, we're going to bring the arts in, we're going to revitalize it, but oftentimes that means you're kicking out the unhoused people, and so like kind of addressing that would have been helpful.
Thanks, Dawn. And Rose, sorry, got mixed up on
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I think let me scroll back up my notes here. I thought that the artists were very qualified. Like Shannon said, I would have wanted a little more information on how they were selected, but I thought that the artists were great for this. Similar to Dawn, I really liked the QR code aspect of it, and I think it's a great awareness for those who are not unhoused to learn and educate and maybe support. But I do wonder about how it could more directly support those who are unhoused. So I see the benefit with having it, but then wonder if they could do a little bit more with it. And then I was also curious about the budget. It didn't look like they had any other support. It was mostly their own cash that they were using. So I just wondered if they were putting out any other applications or trying to think about other ways to support the funding on that. And then, but otherwise, overall, I really like the idea behind it. I think it could, when thinking about it, when I first started reading, I was like, this could be a very passive thing of just seeing the art, but I think they found a way to kind of make it more intentional and accessible and a way to interact with it than just painting the boxes. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rose. All right, if you will take a moment to adjust your score if needed, and then raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to our next application. Okay, next application is Phelps County Community Foundation. Rachel?
So this grant application will help the Midtown Sculpture Garden, which is a fiscally sponsored fund of the Phelps County Community Foundation, to create a mural depicting a Nebraska sky on the west wall of the sculpture garden. This accessible space will provide a downtown gathering place where people can mingle, enjoy a concert, attend a farmer's market or Swedish days, all while enjoying a Nebraska-inspired mural and bronze sculptures. All funds will be used to pay the professional artist who will paint the mural.
Ben, we're starting with you.
Pretty straightforward. Kansas. Sorry, I'm in Kansas. Nebraska sky mural. Like it's already been decided. I think there was not a lot of enticement, I guess, in reading the description of it. I think getting more their listing of it's a part of a bigger project or area, with sculpture and wanting to beautify a place for folks to gather. I think I get that. And the planning portion of it, I like that they have phases to this, and it sounds like they're already on their way in doing this. So that's a positive from my side of things. The evaluation seems very basic, about as basic as the description of the Nebraska sky mural. So maybe that connects, or that makes sense. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that one for now.
All right, thanks, Ben. Dawn.
Yeah, I think Ben kind of said it's a very basic project. This is a small community, and it would have really strengthened this application if there was like a piece of community input, whether it's on the design or the, somehow involved in the process. I think would have helped. They could have done some envisioning sessions with the artists in the community, or even, talk about it with the board, because there's a lot of really strong artists and collectors on the board who understand the arts. I'm not sure what this means, but seeing that Impact Arts is about mentoring new artists, it's a really great opportunity to bring in emerging artists into your community and be part of this process, or elderly, painting base coats, like go a little bit further. So there really isn't any measurable goals, and I don't know how increasing visitors to events, if this mural is not an intentional, this mural is going to draw additional people. Like, is it? Because you have other stuff happening. So planning was basic. Would have liked to see more community involvement. They had good demographics about the community, but the involvement really is only at the top 1% of the community. There's no underserved audiences being identified. The letter of support from the Phelps community development was really good and spoke about the youth and building audiences in the communities, which should have been incorporated into the application. So that's all I really have.
Thanks, Dawn. Rose?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot more to say. Sorry, I switched screens here. I think, like they mentioned, I feel like there's a lot more that they could do with it. It was hard for me to get excited about this one. I think that there could have been more involvement from the community. It seemed like it was just already decided. I would have wanted more information on why they chose to do the sky for that. I don't know that I have a lot more to add.
Thanks, Rose. And Shannon?
I also don't have a whole lot to add, except to say that since they chose the Nebraska sky as the subject, it would have been great to see the mock-up of the design, which it sounded like already existed. So that would have been helpful in getting more of the picture of what the final product is going to be. They are clearly responding to a need for revitalization and trying to keep their community vibrant, and I applaud them for doing that and to trying to use art as a mechanism for that. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon. If you will take a moment to edit your scores if needed, and raise your hand when you're done, and we will continue. And thank you. Ben or Don, I might have missed you. Did you raise your hands? Okay, perfect. Thank you. And panelists, if you are okay with it, we're going to continue with our next two, and then we'll have a break during the final tally. Okay. So our next application is University of Nebraska at Omaha, the Samuel Bach Museum.
This grant application will support an artist-led programming series that encourages reflection on a chosen topic. This program will provide space for artists to build a bridge between Bach's work and their personal practice and create a participatory activity to engage the greater Omaha community. The goal is to devise collaborative public programming that supports and broadens Bach's discussions on the topic of trauma, reconstruction, social justice, discrimination, prejudice, hate, and hope. The grant funds awarded will pay the artists involved the supplies needed for accompanying workshops and a portion of staff time to run the program.
Okay. First is Dawn.
Sorry, I got drawn into my comments. This is a very impressive application. It is a very compelling narrative about the museum and about the artist, and it really drew me in. I would have liked to have seen works from the collection in the application. The list of artists that they have like listed are very interesting. And then there was something I was asking about. There was like 2 community partners that they had discussed working with. I wanted to know why, and because they already have a really good group of artists they're looking at. The project is compelling and rich with possibilities. Like this could really grow their outreach. The topic is really exciting, and it really does fulfill Bach's mission to engage younger generations of artists to use arts against ills of society. It was a very timely piece to be reading it at this time. It was actually kind of difficult for me to do it. There is an amazing list of goals for the project, though the evaluation doesn't really measure them, and they're kind of basic, like attendance and, like, what about the ills of society? How are you measuring that? Give me more. they want to what they say they want to achieve is preparing students with a sense of purpose, civic responsibility, dialogue, commemoration is an honor, and it's right in line with the artist mission. The timeline of the project cut short the depths of the conversation and exploration of the topic and art making needs for the quality project. So let me go back and say, so you're bringing in these artists and you're dealing, and the artists are going to be exploring their own relationship with ills of society, and you're looking at BIPOC populations and things. Are you giving them enough time for a month to create artwork that really reflects and has a dialogue with the artist's work? And I think that takes a long time to develop and nurturing, because you're dealing with social emotional issues. And so I really think that they need to expand the timeline. These artists have historical trauma, and then tap that into the Holocaust. You really do need more time than 1 month to come in and provide a workshop and provide a talk. The artists are unpaid, I think. Underpaid. I'm sorry, underpaid. They're only getting 16% of the budget, which I think is a little low. I think they should invest. They're investing in the artists. They're investing in them pulling in new audiences and doing marketing for you. They should get a portion of your marketing budget and really expand that, because they do have really broad and comprehensive marketing plans. They haven't really identified very specific target audiences that match with the artists selected. So expanding that, how are you going to reach with that? And it would be beneficial to be intentional, slowly cultivating community partnerships, engaging in long-term engagement partnerships, one at a time for marginalized communities, as opposed to trying to bring in a lot of people, have a lot of conversations, a lot of dialogue, and working with the Holocaust, you really can't. I do know that I'm going to try to I'm on the Jewish Historical Society board here in Iowa. We definitely want to come and see this exhibit. We didn't know it was there. So, yeah, you really do need to be more intentional, I think, with the project, though it's exciting. There's a lot of possibilities. I'm done.
Thank you, Dawn. Ben?
I agree with so much of what Dawn just said. I think the timeliness, for better or worse, really has so much potential. And I agree with the sort of legs to what something like this could be. I think is just for what we're doing today, I think is kind of a side note. This grant was specific with what they wanted to do with the foundation or the springboard that they have, which is this collection and that story. But I think if there were notes I would give to this organization is to step back and think about more long range possibilities with what's created with the artists that they've listed as the folks they want to work with, based off of the existing collection in the museum. I think there's loads of potential there. But I think, my comments, I thought their goals were really well stated and perfect, I guess, in a way. I really liked the three goals specifically. It's a great concept, and like I said, it's timely. This might be a technical thing that I could use some correction on from somebody else, but in the budget there was something about a gallery rental, which seemed a little spendy to me. So I'm not sure what that's about. And in terms of the evaluation and outreach, they listed several student opportunities, trips to the museum, and potential interactions with the artist involved. I didn't have many questions about the quantity of opportunities that they're aiming towards. And that's all.
Thanks, Ben. Shannon.
Yeah, this is a fantastic project and it's actually if you don't live here, I don't know if you know, it's a pretty young organization. It has not been open for very long. So this is probably potentially one of their first forays into a project of this nature. Related to that, I just had one comment under the evaluation section, and this may be their intention, but it's not really spelled out. But to make sure that the participating artists are part of the evaluation process and the feedback process, because as you said, Dawn, they may have a lot to say about the amount of time that they're given to work and things like that. And their opinions and voices are going to be critical to the success of this type of thing for the organization going forward.
Thank you, Shannon. Rose?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I think this is a really important, they're addressing a really important topic, and I don't know of a lot of other organizations or anyone else really doing this work, at least from my perspective. So I think it's really needed in the community. I think one thing that I'll add in addition to what's been said so far is I think that their partnership section could have been a little bit stronger. They had listed a lot of other partners, like organizations and people that they're working with in the college and universities section, but they didn't mention any of those in the actual community partnerships section. And I wanted to know more about how they're kind of leveraging their connections with other communities or other organizations in the community, given that they are such a young organization.
Thanks, Rose. All right. If you will take a moment to update your scores if needed, and then raise your hand when you're done, and we'll move on to our final application. Awesome, thank you. Okay, UNL School of Art, History, and Design. Rachel?
Right. So this grant application is to help fund artists Tatiana, and I'm so sorry, Tatiana. I am not even going to attempt your last name because I am afraid I will completely butcher it. But she will engage an audience exploring race and gender through art. The engagements will culminate in a public art installation using her drawings to present their experiences and stories back to the public. Tatiana will lead participants in an art activation in wheat pasting, existing race and gender related posters on designated walls throughout Lincoln. The majority of the funds will be applied to the artist's fee and travel related to hosting the artist, with a minimal amount to be applied to partially cover the cost of administration and oversight of the project.
Thank you. Rose, we're starting with you.
Yeah, overall, I thought this was a strong application. I think that the artist is really qualified and reputable. The only thing concern I had about sort of the merit or quality was I just wonder if they're not from Nebraska. I was just struggled a little bit with their tie to the community. I do think, having said that, though, like, this is a very important topic and something that would benefit the community to learn from and participate in this programming. I liked the what was it called? Sorry, I lost it was, I think, pasting, the programming that they're doing with the workshops. I thought that was really a great piece to add with it. Not just doing the installation, but they had some really good programming with it that I think would be beneficial for the audience. I liked that it provides awareness about a very important topic. I think that they had they talked about how they'll measure success, but I would have liked to know some of their target outcomes. So sort of what their goals are around those outcomes, not just how they're measuring it. I thought they had a really solid budget. They've already secured funding, so I think that was good to see. I think that they had some really strong partnerships outlined in there. It was a little unclear to me what those partners were doing, like sort of their role in the project. So I would have liked a little bit more information on that. But otherwise, I think that's all the notes that I have.
Thanks, Rose. Dawn?
Yeah, this was a great project. Clearly a great artist to be bringing in. It's interesting, it's engaging, a great opportunity for the partners and community to work with her. The methods and everything of the evaluations in place, clear budget with financial support in place. I would have appreciated a little bit more detail on the week in the timeline of like what classes when, just more details on there. Just I think it would be important, and I'm just kind of interested. You know, especially around, you know, how the community members are going to come in and how are they being guided in the art making process, and an idea and a vision of kind of a final piece, or is there plans, or just like how's the artists work with the community. I was kind of surprised, you know, with the Latinos being the largest ethnic population in the community, why they weren't being called in and involved. But other than that, I mean, they do have great outreach with refugees and other partners. So yeah, it's an exciting project.
Thanks, Dawn. Shannon?
I really love this project, and I'm excited. I'm going to want to go down to Lincoln when this happens and see what it's all about. You know, I think it has the opportunity for a really big impact in the broader community. You walk around Brooklyn, New York, and there are things pasted up on buildings all over the place, not so much in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I think these existing posters have the opportunity to make a big splash. And especially the social advocacy content is important in a city that is basically largely college students, and these issues it's necessary to keep them in the forefront of conversation. Just mechanics wise with the application, there was duplication in a number of sections of narrative. And I just want to say to the applicant, never miss an opportunity to say more about your project and what you can be doing with it. So I know sometimes we you know, we've all had those moments where we cut and paste something and don't realize that it's been used before, but really make sure that you are using every character count you have to excite people about your project and what you can do with it.
Thanks, Shannon. And Ben?
Hi. You can hear me, right? My earphones are going a little batty. I like the concept and the way the execution of it is laid out. I think on the surface, anytime there's a partnership between the community and a university, I think lots of good things can happen. And so I like that sort of on the foundation of what they're looking to accomplish. I think the artist clearly has a great track record, and having that person in the community and through the universe and within the university system, I think is a great bridge, hopefully a great bridge. Using an app to evaluate, I thought I'd like to learn more about that. And then some of the numbers that they listed in terms of engagement and outreach, I have no sense of how realistic those are or not. I hope they're realistic, I guess is all I should say. But it's a good proposal.
Thanks, Ben. All right, if you will take a moment to adjust your final score if necessary, and then raise your hand when you're done. All right, thank you very much. Now that all the applications have been discussed and scored, we'll take a 5-minute break. During this time, NAC staff will tally the scores and prepare information for final discussion. When panelists reconvene, we'll review the procedures and make final determinations. The final portion of this meeting is closed to the public, so we will end the live stream now. So to all those watching today, thank you for joining us and have a great day.